evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Haylee Ficuciello, Senior Correspondent for Englebrook Independent News. Tonight, we're taking you across the federal court system in western United States for a look at some of the most significant prosecutions, guilty pleas, convictions, and sentencing announced during the middle week of June. From violent crimes and organized conspiracies to fraud schemes, firearm offenses, border security, health and healthcare fraud, federal investigators continue pursuing cases affecting communities across multiple states. We begin tonight in Washington, where federal prosecutors announced several major cases involving firearm offenses, an alleged terrorism conspiracy, and a multi-million-dollar romance fraud scheme. Federal prosecutors charged 39-year-old Nathaniel A. Moots Spray of Everson with being a felon in possession of a firearm following an encounter with a U.S. Border Patrol agent near a U.S.-Canadian border in Blaine. According to court records, Border Patrol agents responded after surveillance camera detected an individual walking through an area frequently associated with illegal border crossing and smuggling activity. While confronting Moots' spray identity, agents discovered a law enforcement alert advising officers to approach with caution. During a search, an agent located a handgun concealed in Moots' spray's waistband. Prosecutors say Moots' spray resisted, broke free from the officer, and attempted to flee before being shot in the leg. He was treated at a local hospital before being taken into federal custody. According to prosecutors, Moots' spray is prohibited from possessing firearms because of multiple prior felony convictions, including firearm offenses, burglary, possession of a stolen vehicle, bail jumping, and violation of no-contact orders. Federal prosecutors also announced the arrest of 21-year-old William Lee Sprackus Faulkner of Belfair in connection with an alleged plot of targeting the June 14th UFC event held on the White House grounds. According to a criminal complaint, investigators first learned of the alleged conspirators after the parent of one of the suspects in Ohio alerted police about concerning online activity and recent weapon purchases. As investigators reviewed electronic communication, they identified Faulkner as one of the several co-conspirators. Prosecutors allege Faulkner discussed manufacturing and operating drones capable of carrying out explosives. According to investigators, the alleged plan called an explosive-equipped drone to force attendees towards designated exits, where additional conspirators allege intended to carry out shooting using sniper rifles and other weapons. Authorities say Faulkner was arrested before the alleged plot could be carried out. The charges remain allegation, and Faulkner is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in the court of law. In another major Washington case, 42-year-old Nigerian national Franklin Owaku Nwando was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison after prosecutors say he orchestrated a 15-year online romance fraud scheme that stole approximately $3.5 million from multiple victims. According to prosecutors, Nwando created fake online dating profiles using the alias Giovanni, falsely claiming he had been a deployed member of a military. He persuaded victims, many of whom were older, widows, or divorced, to send large sums of money throughout a series of fabricated emergencies, investment opportunities, family tragedies, and military-related expenses. Federal prosecutors said the scheme defrauded 8 victims of more than $3.5 million. During the sentencing, the federal judge described the crime as devastating, saying it ruined not only victims' finances but also caused lasting emotional harm, including shame, depression, and isolation. From Washington, our coverage moves to Oregon, where federal prosecutors announced significant cases involving gang-related firearm offenses and one of the Department of Justice nationwide healthcare fraud investigations. A Gresham man, identified by prosecutors as a senior member of the Hoover Gang, has been sentenced to more than 8 years in federal prison for illegally possessing a firearm as a convicted felon. 32-year-old Shakur Shavante Ray Holiday, also known as Duke Fly, received a sentence of 100 months in federal prison after investigators linked him to firearms displayed in social media videos. According to the court records, investigators executed a search warrant at Holiday's residence after he posted a video showing himself holding an AR-style rifle. During the search, agents recovered 2 firearms, including the rifle shown online. Prosecutors also said the second firearm recovered during a search had been connected to a Beaverton shooting, although investigators did not have sufficient evidence to identify Holiday as the shooter. Federal prosecutors also announced charges against two Oregon defendants as a part of the Department of Justice 2026 National Healthcare Fraud Takedown. 34-year-old Javier Ali, a citizen of Pakistan, is accused of submitting more than $15 million in fraudulent genetic testing claims throughout Oregon Clinical Laboratory. Prosecutors allege that Medicare claims listed patients and physicians who had never heard of the company and that the generic testing was never performed. In a separate case, 67-year-old Mohammed Grami of Cocoa Bay was arrested with conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud after prosecutors alleged that his business submitted more than $2.1 million in fraudulent claims for sleeping studies that were never performed at patients' homes or never conducted at all, while billing insurers as it was testing occurred in office. Those charges are a part of the Department of Justice nationwide healthcare fraud takedown, which announced charges against 455 defendants across 56 federal districts involving more than $6.5 million in allegedly fraudulent claims. As with all criminal information, these allegations remain pending, and the defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. Continuing east to Idaho, federal prosecutors announced charges against Caldwell Woman as a part of the Department of Justice 2026 National Healthcare Fraud Takedown. Nikki Rachel Cook, 47, was indicted on wire fraud and aggravated identity theft charges after prosecutors alleged she fraudulently obtained nursing position by using the identities and professional license of legitimate registered nurses and licensed practical nurses. According to the indictment, Cook allegedly secured employment at multiple healthcare facilities, including behavioral health hospitals, a rehabilitation hospital, skilled nursing facility, and hospice provider, earning more than $22,000 while falsifying representing herself as a licensed nurse. Federal prosecutors say Idaho's case is one of the hundreds announced nationwide as a part of healthcare fraud takedown, targeting more than $6.5 billion in alleged fraud. As with all indictments, the charges remain allegation, and Cook is presumed innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. From Idaho, we head south to California, where federal prosecutors announced several significant cases involving disaster relief fraud, healthcare fraud, and child exploitation. Joyce Turner, 56, of Rosham, Texas, was sentenced to 21 months in federal prison after fraudulently obtaining federal wildfire disaster assistance and COVID-era unemployment benefits. According to prosecutors, Turner falsely claimed to be a Pasadena resident whose home had been damaged during the East Fire. She fraudulently obtained more than $28,000 in FEMA disaster assistance and more than $54,000 in California unemployment benefits by falsifying claiming she lived and worked in California. In addition to her prison sentence, Turner was ordered to pay more than $82,000 in restitution. Federal prosecutors also announced criminal charges against 10 Southern California defendants as part of the Department of Justice nationwide healthcare fraud takedown. Among the cases, prosecutors allege Witter Woman participated in schemes that submitted nearly $270 million in fraudulent Medi-Cal prescription drug claims, while San Fernando Valley Man allegedly operated hospice companies and fraudulently billed Medicare approximately $27 million. Those charges are part of the Nation Enforcement Initiative targeting healthcare fraud and opioid abuse schemes across the country. The allegations remain pending, and all defendants are presumed innocent unless proven guilty in the court of law. Federal prosecutors also announced the sentencing of former San Diego State University Police Sergeant Paul Aurelio McLean, 47. McLean received 46 months in federal prison after pleading guilty to possession of child sexual abuse material. According to investigators, federal agents executed search warrants at McLean's residence after tracing online activity involving child sexual abuse material to his home. Investigators recovered more than 600 illegal images and videos from multiple digital devices. Following his prison sentence, McLean will serve 20 years of supervised release and was ordered to pay more than $22,000 in special assessments. Continuing east to Nevada, federal prosecutors announced multiple sentencings involving illegal re-entry and stolen firearm trafficking. Ruben Anton Vicara Lopez was sentenced to 24 months in federal prison after illegally re-entering the United States following 3 prior removals. According to prosecutors, Veraca Lopez was arrested in Las Vegas on state drug and assault charges before federal authorities determined he had previously been deported. Court records also show prior felony drug trafficking convictions. Following completion of his federal prison sentence, he is expected to be removed from the United States once again. Federal prosecutors also announced the sentencing of Kevon Love Bernard Payne of Las Vegas. Payne received 30 months in federal prison after pleading guilty to trafficking stolen firearms. According to court records, Payne admitted to possessing 35 stolen firearms, including rifles and semi-automatic pistols stolen from a licensed firearm dealer in Southern California. Prosecutors also said several of the stolen weapons were later exchanged for cash and other firearms. Our coverage now moves to Utah, where federal prosecutors announced significant cases involving firearm offenses and international parental kidnapping. Raymond Ace Ortiz, 39, also known as Gimmons, was sentenced to 46 months in federal prison after allegedly possessing a firearm despite being prohibited from doing so because of prior felony convictions. According to prosecutors, member of the U.S. Marshal Violent Fugitive Apprehension Strike Team attempted to arrest Ortiz on parole violations when he fled towards the back of a residential carrying a loaded handgun. Ortiz was shot during the encounter, and investigators recovered a Terrius 9mm pistol with an obliterated serial number. Federal prosecutors also announced the extradition of Alicia Ann Seymour, 35, from Croatia to face federal charges of international parental kidnapping and passport fraud. According to prosecutors, Seymour allegedly removed her 4 children from the United States without the knowledge or consent of the fathers despite existing joint custody agreement. Investigators said Croatian authorities located Seymour and the children earlier this year before returning the children safely to the United States. Prosecutors allege Seymour forged passport documents and fled overseas because she believed the end of time was approaching. Those charges remain pending before the court. As with all indictments, Seymour is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in the court of law. We conclude our report in Arizona, New Mexico, Alaska, and Hawaii, where federal prosecutors announced major immigration enforcement action, narcotic investigations, violent crime prosecutions, fraud schemes, and child exploitation cases. We begin in Arizona, where federal prosecutors continue large-scale immigration enforcement across the District of Arizona. During enforcement operations concluding between June 6 and June 12, federal prosecutors filed immigration-related criminal charges against 323 individuals, including 151 illegal re-entry cases, 144 illegal entry cases, and 23 separate human smuggling cases involving 28 defendants. Among the cases announced, prosecutors charged Carlos Lorenzo Olivares with transporting illegal aliens for profit after authorities say he fled from the Border Patrol checkpoint, leading agents on a pursuit before 4 undercover migrants exited his vehicle and attempted to escape on foot. Federal prosecutors also charged Steven Garcia after Border Patrol agents allegedly discovered 13 undocumented migrants under a motel room in extreme heat. Investigators say Garcia transported the migrants to the motel and failed to provide them with food or water. In another case, Jose Carlos Rolando Arias was charged with investigation allegedly transporting an undocumented migrant following a traffic stop that raised suspicion of human smuggling. Federal prosecutors also announced the sentencing of Brooke McDowey, 35, a former Mesa Bank manager convicted of embezzling approximately $655,000 over a 7-month period. According to prosecutors, McDowey manipulated bank audits, structured cash deposits to conceal the theft after she resigned. She was sentenced to 48 months in federal prison. In another Arizona sentencing, Edgar Giovanni Baca Anaya, 27, received 120 months in federal prison after pleading guilty to distributing fentanyl that resulted in a fatal overdose. Investigators determined the victim contacted Baraka Anaya through Facebook Messenger before purchasing fentanyl shortly before the overdose. Following his prison terms, Baca Anaya will serve 96 months of supervised release. Federal prosecutors also announced another week of immigration enforcement between June 13th and June 18th, resulting in criminal charges against 330 individuals, including illegal re-entry and human smuggling offenses. From Arizona, we move to New Mexico, where federal prosecutors announced several significant cases involving drug trafficking, arson, and aviation safety. Federal prosecutors charged Alex Scott Ronald, 18, Morocco Anton Villegas Averas, 46, and Kyle Leon Rowland, 65, after investigators executed a search warrant of a Farmington residence. According to prosecutors, agents recovered approximately 430 grams of cocaine, suspected methamphetamine, marijuana, mushrooms, multiple firearms, including an AK and AR style rifle, and machine gun conversion devices, ammunition, and approximately 14,700 in suspected drug proceedings. All three defendants remain in federal custody pending trial. If convicted, they each face 5 to 20 years in federal prison. Federal prosecutors also charged Rashawn McClellan, 31, an enrolled member of Navajo Nation, with arson after allegedly he intentionally burned down a residence. The charges remain pending, and McClellan is presumed innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. In Albuquerque, George Pino Amares, 48, pled guilty after aiming a green laser pointer at the Brown County Sheriff's Office helicopter and striking the co-pilot more than a dozen times. According to prosecutors, the laser repeatedly struck the pilot's eye while the aircraft was in flight. Amares faces up to 5 years in federal prison at sentencing. Continuing to Alaska, federal prosecutors announced significant cases involving identity theft and attempted child enticement. Enrico Racalo, 38, a Philippine national, was sentenced to more than 4 years in federal prison after stealing the identity of a U.S. citizen and impersonating one of them while boarding a cruise ship bound for Alaska. According to prosecutors, Racalo used another person's identity to falsify claim U.S. citizenship before boarding the cruise ship in Seattle. Investigators later discovered fraudulent identification documents and additional stolen financial information during the Custom and Border Protection inspection in Juneau. Racalo was also ordered to pay more than $25,000 in restitution and will face deportation proceedings following completion of his sentence. Federal prosecutors also announced that Anchorage jury convicted August Seabreeze, 40, of attempted coercion of enticement of a minor. According to evidence presented at trial, Seabreeze believed he was communicating online with a 13-year-old girl before arranging what he believed would be an in-person meeting for sexual activity. Instead, investigators arrested him after he arrived at the agreed-upon meeting location. We finished tonight in Hawaii, where federal prosecutors announced another case connected to a Department of Justice nation healthcare fraud takedown. Henry Kwan, 54, of Honolulu, was charged with healthcare fraud after prosecutors alleged he was billed Medicare approximately $1.5 million for prescription medication that was never dispensed. According to prosecutors, Kwan controlled Wellness Pharmacy and allegedly submitted fraudulent Medicare claims for expensive prescription drugs despite not having enough inventory to provide the medication billed to the patient. Those charges remain allegation, and Kwan is presumed innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. Across the western United States, these federal prosecutions reflect continual enforcement efforts targeting violent crimes, organized fraud, healthcare fraud, firearm offenses, immigration violations, narcotic trafficking, child exploitation, and threats to public safety. While many defendants have now pled guilty or been sentenced, others only recently have been charged or indicted. Under our justice system, every defendant faces pending criminal charges is presumed innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. We'll continue following these cases as they move through the federal court system. For continued coverage of federal law enforcement, public corruption investigation, major criminal prosecutions, and breaking news, continue following Englebrook Independent News. I'm Haylee Ficuciello. Thank you for joining us, and good night.